Let me tell you why you're here.
I've seen things.
Oh my god.
Whoa, yeah! You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Guaranteed to jack you up.
Yo, what's going on, my dudes? It's your host, Lamar Staysbury, coming to you once again, out of sight, out of mind, with another podcast. Today, we are going to be covering a movie that has, I would say, a very well put together, like, female lead. And I know it's March, so it's Women's History Month. I just figured this would be something. I mean, unintentionally, we had Evil Dead, which had a very strong female lead. So, it's like, yo, going to the next one, we're going to have a few more. So I think for the rest of this month, these types of podcasts are actually going to have like either strong female leads or just strong female characters in general. It'd be nice to shine the light on them because females and the horror genre just go completely hand in hand. I think, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, I think the horror genre and sci-fi genre are the top two leading genres that really depict like women in a very powerful and respectable stance, and it has been doing that for a very long time. Now, with that said, I do know they're also some of the biggest ones to kind of exploit that factor as well, which that does suck. Yeah, but I believe it's okay if it's in the context. Like, it depends on the context that it's in. Like, recently, my girlfriend and I, we watched this movie called Frankenhooker because Catherine Newton's Lisa Frankenstein. We watched that, loved it, and we heard that that was pretty much a remake of Frankenhooker. I don't know if that's 100% true, but we decided to watch that as well. Really liked it, and I don't like gratuitous nudity or just movies that depict women in such a strong, demeaning way because it just comes off super predatory to me, and I don't really like that type of behavior, especially after, you know, post Harvey Weinstein and all that stuff coming out. So yeah, I don't really like those types of things where somebody could have obviously used a project and their position, their power to just look at a bunch of girls naked or get them to do all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I don't really like that type of deal. But if this is what the movie is revolved around, if it's revolved around sex and like the female form and all these other things that have to deal with sexualizing a woman, or it could be a man too, but of course it predominantly happens to women, that would be something I'm like, okay, that's fine. That makes sense. That's the point. And this is like the job that they took, knowing this is what this project is specifically about. You know what I mean? And now I'm sure a few of you are wondering probably why am I wearing this? And if you guys can't see it on Spotify, just go to YouTube. TikToks are probably not going to be a thing right now. I don't really know. As I'm recording this, waiting to see what's going to happen with TikTok, but that's a whole other thing. But this is my cooking attire. This is what I normally wear. Yeah. I wear this. It was my mom's, but now I just wear it whenever I do the cooking. And I do plenty of cooking. I like to cook. I do enjoy cooking. And this has a lot to do with today's movie. We're going to be talking about 2022's Fresh. Now, I just missed the anniversary probably about a week because it came out on March 4th, 2022, which if you have that birthday, awesome for you. And it is also a special day because March 4th in 2000 is when the PlayStation 2 came out in Japan. I just saw that today when I was just scrolling around some stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's quite an anniversary. 24 years ago, one of the greatest consoles ever made came out in 2000 on this day in Japan. That's fucking awesome. You know, I think that's really sick. I have like two PS2s here in my house. So yeah, I love the PS2. It is one of my favorites. I love PlayStation, even though they got some faults, but so on and so forth, whatever. Now, if you guys haven't heard of Fresh, this was a straight to streaming movie. This was Hulu's movie that had Sebastian Stan and my first introduction to Daisy Edgar Jones. Now, they did phenomenal in this movie. Their chemistry, this is another one of those movies that the first like half or like the first quarter of this movie is like a completely different movie that I kind of wish I would watch that now. I'm curious. Like, I love how everything else turned out, but now I want to see what that first half would have been if it just stayed that movie. It was a very surprising watch because I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into. I just knew it was called Fresh. It had Sebastian Stan. I like Sebastian Stan, so I was like, yeah, you know, like, let's watch it. I hear it's a horror movie. That's as far as I really got. Didn't really know a whole bunch about it, but the name should have gave it away. So this is a cannibal movie. So it is like a dark comedy psychological thriller. It is a cannibal movie that is done, and pun intended, tastefully. It is done very tastefully. The characters are well written. It is very well shot, and I'm about to get into why that is exactly. And this is a well crafted world as well. It makes you curious as to what else is going on just by the little sprinkles of information throughout the movie. You get an idea of what this world is, and it's like, wow, that is actually like bonkers. And this is probably something that happens to like today, like in real time, which, as crazy as shit gets, and like the more we figure out about what the elites do with their money and all that free time, yeah, it is not surprising that this would probably be something. And like I said, it most likely is. Don't get me wrong, this is a great movie. It is a fun watch, and you kind of see it through those like rose tinted glasses, like, oh, I'm watching a great horror movie. And sometimes we kind of just are like very desensitized as to what we're watching. We're just like, oh yeah, you know, this is fun, not realizing this is probably such a terrifying experience. And honestly, I believe this is one of the most terrifying experiences I've seen, if you really think about it. But we're going to go into that a little more. But yeah, this movie looks great. It is a directorial debut as well by another female director, Mimi Cave. She did phenomenal. First movie in. I would love to see her do another horror movie. I'm interested to see what else she's going to do next. But right out of the gate, her first directorial debut, she has Sebastian Stan in the movie, who is big star at this time because of the MCU. So everybody knows the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. But she has an amazing tool in her corner, and I think they used it very well. And that is director of photography, Paweł Pogorzelski. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I really tried. But he is the DP, or cinematographer, for the people who don't know what the DP is, of Hereditary, Midsummer, and Beau's Afraid. So all three of Ari Aster's feature films, and that is an amazing feat and such an amazingly talented person to have on your first film. That is top notch. I think, I don't know how she scored that, but she did. That is awesome. That is really cool. So that is a good reason why this movie looks so good, and it's shot very well. But now let me give you a little bit of the synopsis about the film. So we're following Daisy Edgar Jones's character, Noah. So Noah is a single woman, been single for a while, and she's trying to get into dating a little bit, modern dating, which is very weird, and I don't even have that much experience in. And so she tries using these apps, you know, to meet people, but the experiences don't go too well. So she just kind of like gives up on it, you know, whatever, like it's just not going to be for her. Until one day she comes across a man in a store, and they hit it off. They have chemistry. She's like, you know what? I actually met somebody in person, which doesn't seem like that happens too often, and we kind of got along, exchanged numbers. So we're going to try this out. We're going to try out this date and see how it goes. From then on, you know, you got the right ingredients for a pretty well-nourished possible relationship going on right there. And I think that's awesome. And it's nice to see. Like I said, I kind of wish I was watching a different movie until it switches. It is fun, but since we're talking about it, you guys know shit goes off the rails, and this is not exactly how it stays, and I'm here for it. I love the ride. So it turns out the guy that she's been seeing is a cannibal, and he sells people's body parts. That's what he does. That's how he makes his money. That's how he's able to look as good as he does, have the home that he has, and it's going to be gory, it's going to be gross, it's going to be interesting, it's going to be everything that you need. And this movie is like a little shy of 2 hours. I think it's like an hour 54 minutes. Not bad, very worth it. I think the pacing is done very well, and it's kind of the standard now for most movies to be about 2 hours, around that like minimum. And I do not mind long movies. I am all for long movies. Some of my favorite movies, or at least like movies I really, really enjoy to watch, are probably close to 3 hours. I'm all for it. I do not care. As long as the pacing is well done, you won't feel it at all. Something has to always be happening and keeping your interest, because that is quite a commitment to ask of somebody. Is like, hey, can I have 2 hours of your time? That is a long time, especially if you don't want to be somewhere. Yeah, it drags. But I don't think this movie does that at all. They did a very good job with that. And I'm not the only one either. The movie is sitting at a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb. I think that's okay. I think it probably deserves a little more. Maybe people were overhyping it when it first came out, and then I set a lot of expectations. That 6.7 is backed up by 72,000 reviews. So I would say, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to be a mathematician about it, but I think that's pretty all right. On Letterboxd, the average is 3.4. I personally gave it 4 stars, and I think my girlfriend gave it 3.5. So you don't have to trust our opinion, but I think it is pretty good. And who just goes to Hulu for a Hulu movie? Everybody knows like Netflix movies and stuff, and a lot of times they're not great. But I remember when they were first coming out, they're like, oh, Netflix has their own film. Let's check that out. Hulu was doing it. It's like, all right, sure, fuck it. Let's check it out. And it was actually really good. And it's not the first time that they had some pretty decent stuff that they did. So now that we got past that stuff, we're going to get into more of the spoilery territory and talk about the movie itself, some of my favorite moments, and just the gist of overarching trajectory of where we're going from point A to point B. Now, I want to talk about the actors real quick. This was my first time ever seeing Daisy Edgar Jones. Never saw her anything before. I think she's mainly done TV. But in case you people know her, she's mainly known for the show Normal People, War of the Worlds, and Sebastian Stan, Bucky Barnes, you know, MCU's Winter Soldier, breakout character in that. And then I mentioned it last time, he was also in 2006's The Covenant, which is still a film I'm going to cover one day. I got to talk about my Wizards, man. And he was in another Hulu project that I really liked. I thought it was well done. It was super interesting. And he looked fucking good in this show, man. Like, honestly, he looked better than the original person. But it was Hulu's Pam and Tommy. I think he looked way better as Tommy Lee than Tommy Lee himself. And, yo, I did not know I needed like a rock and roll Sebastian Stan, and I fucking got it. And it was great. Just in this alone is such a wide range of the different Sebastian Stans I've seen, and it's so crazy to me. A high school jock prick in The Covenant, and then in this movie, he's a well-dressed, charming individual. And then you got Pam and Tommy where he's a fucking disrespectful, like rock and roll, like drunk and drug user and just getting into all sorts of shit, like just a fucking delinquent. It is so funny to see that range, but he does a great job. He handles them all very, very well. All right, so now we're going to get into the film. So we start off this film following Noah. Like I said earlier, she's trying to get into the dating scene, so she's using an app, and she's going to meet this guy at this restaurant. They meet at the restaurant, and she's not even sure she really wants to be there because she's not really feeling the guy, but she's already at the restaurant, and she's hungry. She's telling her friend Molly, played by JoJo T. Gibbs. And Molly tells her, just blow him off, you know, don't worry about it. Don't go through the date if he's kind of like, you're not getting the right vibe. But they did match, so it has to mean there's probably something, right? But they go to this restaurant, and just the first look of this guy, and I can't believe they knew what they were doing. And specifically since this movie's directed by a woman, seeing the way this dude is dressed, you're like, oh God, like, yeah, this is one of those guys. Like, okay, like we know what we're in for. It's a guy it's the scarf. You see him and he just looks like kind of like hipstery, like indie hipstery dude. He's just wearing a plain t-shirt and he has this scarf just wrapped around him. I don't know how to explain it, but if you see him yourself, you're just like, I know who that is. I know how you talk. I feel like I know what your interests are. I could probably say key lines that you most likely say that is probably not okay for a person like you to say. Like those types of things. And she's trying to get through the date. They're talking about just kind of like nothing really. It's mainly him talking. They're talking nonsense about condiments, and you can see she's just kind of there and just like, like she's doing like that smile where it's like you're trying to like control like your bitch face or like a judgy face, and you're trying to seem interested for the sake of the other person. That's exactly what she's doing this whole time. And the date gets even worse because not on top of this guy just kind of dressed a bit like a douche, he actually is a douche. We get confirmation, and trust me, it gets worse. He looks like he's the nice guy. He's really not a fucking nice guy. So they're eating at this Asian restaurant, and the waiter that comes up is an older Asian woman. He's asking for sparkling water, and he talks to her in the most condescending, racist way This is just something like white people do, especially when they're talking to a foreigner who may not understand them. They just still say the same things, but they just like stretch it out like water. Like, do you understand? Like water. Like, I don't think you're understanding me. Like water. And they do the hand gestures and all that. It comes off super backhanded and condescending. But yeah, he's like such a dick. And you could see like the secondhand embarrassment. And I would say more than halfway through this date, she already knew, yeah, I'm not coming back for a second date. Nah, not on this. And this guy has the nerve to ask for her leftovers. And he does end up keeping them, which is fucking annoying. I don't know why she said that, but I feel like she just wanted to get out of this situation as quickly as possible. So whenever the date is finally ending, they're standing outside and the guy's just like, yeah, like I had a good time. Like, we should do this again sometime. And then she tries to let him down easy, like, yeah, I'm probably not really feeling it right now. And then this just flips a switch in this dude. He just lays it out and completely drops the nice guy persona. But I think we all know this is actually the nice guy persona, air quotes, that this is how the nice guys are. And he was like, you're not even my type anyway. I was just like doing you a service. I was just being here, not even interested in you like that. Like you're a stuck up bitch. You're going to be alone. And it's like, what the fuck? And even she's like so blown away, like, what the fuck just happened? I don't get why guys do this. I never understood this mentality. I've been rejected before, but my first thought was like, damn, that sucks. Like, that was my thought. Like, holy shit, yeah, that kind of sucks. That hurts a little bit. But I mean, what the fuck am I supposed to do about it? Like, like it's just how it is. They have a choice in the matter. But I never understood somebody pursuing somebody, and then the moment they get rejected, they immediately start hurling all these things at you. And usually it's all about your appearance, like, and it's kind of the standard you see, oh, well, like, you're fat, or like, you're a whore, or blah, 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 or yeah, I wouldn't be caught with you anyway, or some shit like that. I don't get that mentality. That is so fucking weird to me. Like, that is strange. Like, why would you do that? And then we cut to where Molly and her are at the gym, hitting the punching bag, just gossiping about the whole thing. And Noah talks about how she's just okay with being alone. She's used to it. And honestly, I believe that is a big fault that a lot of people have. They do not know how to be alone. Some people are just way too dependent or romanticize having this other person in your life so much that as if your life, like just yours alone, your individual life doesn't matter anymore. Like, you have no value. And that drastically needs to change, because fuck with your seatbelts, but literally we are all going to die alone. That is just how it is. We all have our own life to live, our own perspectives to see. We need to be content with ourselves. We're the only ones in our head, man. We're going to be the only ones talking to ourselves and saying things that we're not going to say to another person, or that person's not going to say to us. You need to be content with yourself. You need to like yourself, because you are going to spend more time with yourself than anyone else in the world. So you need to get on board and be okay with that. You need to become your best friend. That's what needs to happen. You need to care for yourself, love yourself, and just have fun with yourself. You need those things if you want to attract those types of people who do that as well. And the chemistry will be even better. You need to have that, because not everyone is always going to be around. There are going to be times it's just you, and you got to be okay with that. You don't need it to be this thing where you're so afraid to be alone when you actually are. It is like a very dark and depressing moment. They don't need to be that way. I enjoy being alone because I've been alone, and it's not a bad thing. You need to be okay. You got to learn how to entertain yourself, man. That's just how it is. So I strongly advise it. If you don't really feel those three things, like with yourself, that you don't love, care, or can have fun by yourself, you got to work on that. I think that's something that everyone should be doing. You got to do some soul searching. And by doing that, you're going to attract the right people, man. And then you're going to be great company to have around. But that doesn't mean you can't have some cool friends. And Molly is a goated friend. You're going to see more of that later. But they're at the gym, hitting the bag, and they're talking about it. And Molly just says, what's wrong is that we were raised with the romanticized idea of getting with someone and pretty much that Disney love. Like, that's what it is, like the Disney movies. And I firmly agree. I've met plenty of people who are all about that. Oh, yeah, you know, that traditional, we grow up, date somebody, get married, have kids, so on and so forth. I believe there is way more to life than that, and that's just not for me. But then again, I didn't have the greatest example growing up, and I'm not going to go too much into it, even though I do see these as a bit of my therapy session, because once again, I am by myself, I am having fun, I am talking about movies I love, I talk about my personal experiences alone in a room surrounded by my figures and my camera and a microphone. Now I just do this for fun and record it, and maybe other people can feel the same way. But I didn't have the greatest example of a relationship growing up, so it definitely skewed my view on things. Like, I know I'm talking about these things, but that doesn't make me perfect. I still have all my fucked up shit up here, and I still have my own issues I gotta work through. But it skewed my view of relationships, and now I have a hard time with them, and I struggle in my relationships and trying to figure out the world and how I want my life to go. I'm almost to my 30s. I didn't think I would live this long, so I'm floating by, man. I'm a fucking starfish or a sea cucumber in the sea. I'm wherever the current takes me. I'm just going with the flow. Like, that's all what's happening. And I have no choice but to run with it and just make the best of what I got going on. And that's all I'm trying to do. And I feel like that's all anybody can do, especially the state of the world that we're in. And I'm not trying to get too existential on anybody, but I do believe this mindset that Molly is talking about is something that is dangerous and can also be very negative. It could have negative impacts on somebody, all because maybe their relationship, which could be a good relationship, is now not the standard because it doesn't meet these certain criterias, and then people judging their relationships based on other people when you never know what their relationship is like. And we can all say that. We could see a couple and be like, oh my god, they're like goals, they're great for each other, so on and so forth, but we literally have no idea what they go through. They may not be great, they may be incredibly toxic, or who knows, they might just barely even be in a relationship. Like, they're probably have nothing to do with each other, but out and about they're like, oh yeah, they're amazing. You never know. But everyone knows whenever somebody breaks up and you have like no insight of that relationship, but you talk to them, you're like, oh yeah, how you doing, like how are you and so, oh no, we're not together anymore, like we broke up a while ago. And it's like, oh damn, like, all right, I didn't see that coming. Like, you know, and if they decide to ask, I never do, because that's not my business. I mean, if you guys want to talk about it, you talk about it, sure. But if somebody tells me straight up everything that was wrong, they decide to trauma dump a little bit, all right, hey, more power to you. I don't mind. I like other people's drama. I don't personally like drama. That's just me. So yeah, I won't mind hearing some stuff. And then you figure out just how bad things are. And it's like, wow, I never would have guessed like that. I wouldn't have pegged any of this at all. And it's like, yeah, no fucking duh. So why would you automatically be like, oh, I want to be like that? I could see another couple do something and you're like, you know what? That'd be really fucking cool. Why don't we do that? Let's go check that out. Let's go do this. Like, if it's an experience or like an event or something like that, sure, understandable. But trying to hold yourself to the same standard as another person's relationship, you shouldn't ever do that, because you are not them. Your partner is not them. Don't fucking do that. All it does is just kind of create a little bit of resentment. And somebody could probably say, oh, that's not what it does. Like, it's fine. No, it's going to be resentment. It's going to be disappointment, because it's not that. You had this built up in your head, like, oh yeah, this is going to be cool. Like, we're going to be like that, or I want us to be that way. And then it doesn't end up that way. And it's like, cool, you got your own thing going on. That's what's going to make it special. If they wanted to be that, go fucking date them or whatever, you know? Like, that's how I see it. So I think you just make the best of what you got, grow something different. That is the whole point. If everybody was trying to be like another relationship, well, what's even the point of dating if it's all going to be cookie cutter shit? You know what I mean? Like, to me, it makes perfect sense, but I mean, I could be wrong. I am just a guy, but that's just how I see it. But all right, enough of all that. She gets a really good pep talk from Molly. It makes perfect sense. And by the way, I do want to state for any of my female viewers out there, I love that these two women are just in the gym together, you know, encouraging one another. I think that is awesome. I think it should become a standard to teach women self-defense classes. I know that's not what they're doing, but it made me think of that because I think that's very important to at least know these typical things. But I think that should be a standard thing that should be taught. I don't know when, where, how, but I think it should be. So I encourage anybody to do it. At least take some classes. That'd be great. You never know what the fuck is going to happen one day. So please take care of yourself and, you know, just much love and good vibes. But now we fast forward a little bit. She's on the same app again. She gets a match and she tries to talk about their dog because, you know, it's a good icebreaker, you know, talking about somebody's pet. You know, I think it says a lot about how they treat their pet, what they're probably like in person to other people. Possibly. I do know some people treat their pets way better than other people, but I think it's a good insight to like how they might do certain things. So I think it's a good clue to look at. And then this dude just, in typical fashion, because I've heard plenty of these stories as well, especially if you ever go on Reddit and just see how these things happen. Jesus Christ, man. He immediately switches it just out of nowhere towards the beginning of the conversation, just talking about how, I think how wet that he can make her, and then just unsolicited dick pic right then and there. And she's just mortified, like her eyes, oh man, she sells that so well. I think it is a very good representation of what happens. And that is another thing I never understood that guys do, and I'm glad this movie points it out because I've never like seen it. I've only ever heard about it. The unsolicited dick pic thing, dudes, I don't get it, man. Like I really don't. What makes you just like in a normal conversation where nothing is going on, you're just gonna be like, hey, yo, look at my dong. And it's just like, why? Why would you do that? Like, I don't know. That's not my mentality. And I want to say, at least from a lot of things I hear, and of course, like Reddit stories and stuff, people say like, okay, it's not like, oh, they have something to show off, so that's why they're just really confident. No, I feel like a lot of the times that is not the case. And it's just like, and I'm not trying to like emasculate anyone, but it's like that's what you're proud of. Like, this is what you really want to show me right now. Don't. Like, I don't know. That's just fucking weird. I never understood that. But she just gets the dick pic, mortified, and it's funny because you actually see dong. I know I talked about I don't like gratuitous nudity, but it is always the women that are getting this type of attention. It needs to be normalized, and it's definitely gotten better over the last decade, I would say. We need to normalize dudes hanging dong. That's just me. I think it should be a normal thing that we start to see a little dong. If this is how it's going to be, we're going to exploit women, we got to exploit some men too. Hang dong. I feel like that's not too hard. It just needs to happen. Normalize nudity in general without over-sexualizing it. And I will say, I don't think this was gratuitous. I don't want anybody trying to throw my words back at me. It is not, because it is in the context. This guy just wanted to send an unsolicited dick pic. It fits. It's not gratuitous. It makes perfect sense. This is something women go through, unfortunately. But just because it works in this situation, guys, don't fucking go showing your dong anywhere. But I think we need to start seeing more male nudity in movies. I think it should be normal. It's already normal for chicks. Make it normal for dudes, so where it's like, oh, not a big deal. But I think we're headed in the right direction because everybody fucking watched Saltburn. And we saw what everyone had to say about that. So we're in the decade of the dongs, bro. We're there. And you see, I never could have imagined being this way because I never done anything like that. I've been on Tinder before, yes. I came from a small town, I had no idea. When I moved over here, I was 18. My best friend and I, we got a place. We were here, and we didn't know anybody. So I was like, you know what? I always hear about Tinder. People talk about just meeting people on Tinder. I did not know anything because I was an 18-year-old, so I thought I knew everything, and I really didn't. So I was using Tinder, and I was thinking, oh, you could use it to meet friends. Like, that's what it's for. Cool. It's like, yeah, I'm not really trying to date anybody as soon as I get here. I'm just trying to find friends. And I remember I matched with this one girl, and we hung out a few times. Never once did I try anything, but I worked at Universal Studios. You know, I got her into the parks. You know, we hung out a few times, and out of nowhere, we just like stopped talking. I don't know if like there was supposed to be something more, like maybe I didn't do, but we just like stopped talking. But that was it. I was only trying to look for a friend. We didn't do anything at all. Like I felt like she probably thought I was wasting her time, which I probably was if that's what she was doing. But I mean, hey, I had no idea, and I was just trying to meet friends, bro. And in the off chance she ever sees this and probably somehow still follows me for some fucking reason, I am so sorry. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there, just in the off chance. You never fucking know. But while she's at home, she gets hungry, doesn't have anything to eat, relatable. So she decides to go to the store, late night run. You know, she's not dressed her best, which I think this is something because earlier on that date with that first douchebag, he was talking about how I miss the old days. You know, I miss how women used to like, you know, be all dressed up. Like you would look really pretty in a dress. And I feel like that's not something you should say. You should kind of just accept what somebody's like wearing if they're like, I mean, she didn't look bad at all. I think she had a sweater. You know, she was dressed nice. She had layers, so it was nice. It wasn't bad. But for some reason, he was just like, oh, yeah, I would have wanted you to wear a dress while this fucking jerk off is wearing a goddamn t-shirt and a scarf. Fuck out of here. Like, that makes no fucking sense. But she's going there. You know, she got the sweats, the messy bun, and she's wearing like these shoes. She has her socks like pulled up over her sweatpants at the bottom, which looks very funny to me. So I think obviously kind of going for the hobo-ish look a lot of people do when they do like a Walmart run or something like that. Not when you go to Target though. No. We get dressed up for Target, okay? That's plain and simple. We get dressed up for Target. Publix, you can kind of push it. Kinda. Walmart, you can roll out of bed and go there. Target, you fucking dress to impress, okay? That's what you're going there to do. Jesus Christ. I laugh at my own jokes. Blow me. But she goes there. She's looking for some produce. And then she is stopped by one charming man, Sebastian Stan's character, ironically named Steve. And he just breaks the ice talking about grapes. And film, art, media in general does have an effect on your life. Because of these grapes, my girlfriend and I actually tried them, and they were not bad. Could I eat a whole bag of these? No. But it was very interesting. Kind of blew my mind a bit. I was like, wow, the movies don't lie. That is very interesting. So he starts talking to her about these grapes and how he doesn't believe that they taste like cotton candy. I believe they are called cotton candy grapes. I cannot remember exactly. We only came across them like the 1 or 2 times. And so he just says, hey, like, do you want to try one? I don't believe it. So she tries one and she's like, wow. Like, it honestly does. Like, yeah. And so they have a nice conversation, and it gets like cutely awkward. Like, it's like what's it called? Like a meet cute type of deal. Like, I don't know. It's where like you meet somebody and you kind of have like a cute interaction and you're like, damn, I think I just saw like our lives together. Like, yeah. I think it's like one of those things that, you know, when you come across somebody like that and, you know, he's doing like these cheesy jokes and he kind of misses a little bit. He's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna roll out like, yeah, I tried. And then he ends it with, you know what? I'm just going to embarrass myself even further. Can I have your number? And I'll want to text you, but I'm not gonna. But I want your number. So that type of deal. So it was cute. And he's like, you know what? Damn. This just reminds me, like this whole interaction between them two in the grocery store just reminds me of like other movies. You know, it just reminds me of how I talked about Barbarian recently. That whole meet cute scenario where, you know, oh, these two people, like, you know, these two attractive people just happen to get this one house in the middle of fucking nowhere on a very rainy night and they both decide they're going to stay and then they have really good chemistry and all that stuff. And then shit goes off the rails and yeah, one of them dies. That was cute in the beginning. Like that, I wanted that movie, especially with them two. And then you have the same thing with another deep cut that I feel like a movie a lot of people don't talk about, but we need to talk about because one of the stars is very prominent right now. Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams in Red Eye. And Red Eye was directed by Wes Craven, you know, R.I.P. to him, legend. And that movie is great. And you see the beginning of that, how they meet, and it is kind of cute. They have like these little run-ins and then they end up on the plane next to each other. And you're like, oh man, this would be such a cute movie. No, what happens? He's a fucking psychopath that is holding her father hostage and then is sitting next to her trying, you know, fucking her up. Like, I don't know, like he gets away with just beating this woman in the bathroom and all this other stuff and holding her hostage on a plane. Fucking crazy. If you haven't seen that movie, fucking watch that one too. That is a good movie. Now, after some time, he does text her and then they actually do go out on a date to a bar. And they hit it off. They have good chemistry, so they start getting to know each other. She stays a little longer. They're having drinks, talking in dark corners. They start at the bar. They talk about all the deep stuff. He ends up being a plastic surgeon. She's somebody who doesn't really have much family, and I feel like that's such a terrible thing to like say. And then they bond over the fact that they both have like dead parents, which is dark, but I feel like that is perfectly in tune with how people would react nowadays. Because I used to have a friend who would always bring up how his dad died, and it was uncomfortable at first because I never came across that. I never knew somebody at that age that had a dead parent. So it was wild when he would randomly throw it out there, and it's just like and then over time it was like, yeah, dude, I think you're not okay. Like, do you need to talk about it like a little bit? And I feel like it did impact him a lot more than he thought. And I didn't realize how recent it was. By the time I met this guy, I think his dad passed away maybe about a year ago. And I'm just like, boy, you're going through it, man. And during that friendship, we did drink a lot. So I think he definitely did have some demons. But I don't know. Like, hopefully he's better now. I have no idea. Dark humor, man. It bonds us all. It's trauma. It's how we get there. It's how we get through it. But the night goes really well, and they end up making out, and then they're eventually back at her place. And things are progressing, and he kind of pulls back, which she likes because he has been very charming and respectful, hasn't given off any red flags yet. So he tries to pull back, like, hey, like, are we going a bit too fast? Like, like, what's going on? And she just, you know what? Fuck it. Like, take me. Like, I'm doing that. She's applying the fuck it mentality, which is all good. A lot of times for people who are kind of just stuck in ruts and stuff, it's probably a good thing to every now and then say, you know what, I'm gonna say yes to this. Just try to do something to get me out of the funk, like get me in a different trajectory. Maybe something cool will happen. But you can't always do that. I understand doing it every now and then. Yes, by all means. But definitely don't go overboard. Like, they try to do it all within like reason, try to think about some things a little bit first where you're not going completely overboard. But they sleep together, and she actually snags a picture of him because he doesn't have any social media, and he was sleeping. And it's Sebastian Stan. So she thought, obviously, wow, he's hot while he's sleeping. Takes a picture to where she can show him to Molly, because Molly doesn't really know anything other than what she knows, and definitely doesn't know what he looks like. And he has no social media presence, which Molly says is a red flag, which is kind of understandable. And it's not a bad thing. We can't chastise somebody who doesn't have social media, but it is like a little weird that you don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little like, like, why? I mean, it's cool if somebody's like grounded down to earth, like, no, I don't really want to do all that. That's perfectly okay. But, for this reason, because of the person that he turns out being, makes perfect sense why he doesn't have social media or his name out there or anything like that. But now they have another date, and it's going to be at her place. So they're eating, they're talking, and she's having some food, and she's having ribs of some sort. And she asks about him, what are you gonna eat? Like, why aren't you eating and stuff? He just says, oh yeah, I don't. And he answers this question in a very particular way. And I think this movie is good for like 2 watch throughs. So that way you get to see all the little signs that you missed. He talks about how he doesn't eat animals. So he's not saying he's vegetarian. He's not saying he doesn't eat meat. He doesn't eat animals. That is a very smart and creepy fucking way to answer that question. So now, because of this movie, I kind of subconsciously look out for that if somebody says some shit weird like that. And so they're still getting along very well. And he just says, you know what? Hey, why don't we go on a trip? Let's get out of here. Let's plan this. Let's go away for a little while. And she's a bit like meh about it at first, but because of how things have been progressing, she really enjoys it and wants to see where this relationship is going. So she agrees. And her friend Molly, not a big fan of it. She's being supportive. She's being a very good friend. She definitely expresses her concerns, but she's also trying to be respectful of the choices that she's making because she is an adult. And it's like, hey, if you're happy, as long as you're happy, you're safe. Like, I'm happy for you. So they get all packed up for this trip, but then he makes up some excuse like, oh, like I'm late. There's traffic. Like, we could probably head out another time. Why don't we stay at my place? And that's exactly what they go do. She finally gets to see his place and see how nice it is. And he is a plastic surgeon. It is a nice house, but it's very remote, and there's like no signal or anything, so she can't get in contact with Molly. Molly's still kind of concerned, she doesn't really know what's going on or like the full plans that they had planned out. And whenever they get there, so they start drinking and talking again. And this is a very smart and creepy way that he did this. So he did end up drugging her drink. He's definitely somebody that you can kind of tell knows like his stuff. Like, it looks like he knows his way around a drink, like a bit of a mixologist, a little bit. Fancy word for bartender. And he fixes her this fruity drink. And he just says, tell me what you taste in there. So he doesn't say what it is, but it's like a surprise. And she just keeps drinking. And she makes some guesses. Like, nope. Like, keep going. Like, try. And it's like, oh, man. We already know. Like, you watching this, like, he's trying to get her to drink the fucking drink. Like, that's what he's doing. He's trying to get her to fucking bottoms up that shit. And so she starts to get a little woozy and passes out. And it's weird how okay he was with this, because he's just sitting there the whole time, fully relaxed, just drinking his drink, and she just passes out on the floor, and he just looks at her like he is so unbothered. He's done this so many times. So she finally wakes up, and she's in this, I'm gonna say, I wouldn't be too upset. I've seen way worse settings in horror movies than what she got. It is kind of a very nice looking dungeon area. Like, the floor is like carpeted. The mattress that she's like sleeping on is like in the ground. Like, it's well lit. It has a nice like reddish orange carpet. There's like a little toilet set up. There's, I don't know, like, this is kind of a mood. Put some like appropriate furniture in there. It's a nice little room. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not the worst place to wake up and be chained to, okay? You could be chained up in the fucking Saw bathroom when you wake up, all right? This or that. That's the type of situation you're going with right now, okay? I would have much preferred that. The bed at least looks like it might be a little comfortable. But she wakes up, she's a bit like thrown off, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, like she's chained to the fucking wall. And he just outright with it. And before, he's all charming, smile, when you first meet him. This one, he's not like cold, but he's definitely straight faced. He's like, look, so I'm gonna sell off bits and pieces of you and make a lot of money, but you're gonna be taken care of, you're gonna be fed, clothed, and I'm not gonna kill you. Like, I'm pretty much saying like, oh, I'm not gonna make you suffer, but every now and then I'm just gonna take off bits and pieces of you to keep selling, because fresh meat's better than just killing somebody and then taking the meat. So that is fucking alarming. That is scary. Think about that. You're being eaten. You are being cut up to be packaged and then made into a fucking like 5-star meal by these Hollywood like elitists or these like political people, because you do see a few of them. These are definitely people that have power and influence. And this is done over time. It could be anything. They could decide, you know what? Thigh meat. Like, I want that, so I'm going to take your whole right leg, and yeah, you're going to wake up one day and you just don't have a fucking leg anymore. And then who knows what else? Literally later in the film, I'm going to spoil this now. I was going to save it for the moment when I talk about it. Later in the film, they're eating somebody's breasts. You could wake up one day and your breasts are just gone. Your leg just gone. That is fucking terrifying. This is why I say this is probably one of the most terrifying scenarios I think I've ever seen in film, because that is just dude, like, what does that do? What does that do to your head? Like, what the fuck? Like, what are you supposed to think? What are you supposed to do whenever every other, who knows how long he keeps them alive, maybe like a month or two, but like every other day or every other week, something of you is missing. Somebody could fucking want, like, I want some fucking mozzarella sticks one day. What are we gonna use? Give me your fucking fingers. Come here. Give me your motherfucking fingers right now. And you want to hope that they have some like pretty thick fingers. Mine are kind of thin, but that's just me. And ironic, my ring says core. But yeah, it's what the fuck? Like this happens, and this is a gory movie. It does get gory. It's not like over the top, but it's scary enough. Like, holy shit. In the scenarios where it does happen, it's fucking scary. So because of how you're watching this movie and how you feel during it, you're not going to fully grasp that this is an extremely terrible situation. Somebody is kidnapped and being fed on and is going to be fed on for a long period of time. That is, dude, what? What the fuck? And so now the only person who knows about their whereabouts is Molly. And Steve does know about Molly. So he's like a little concerned because normally he is trying to go for somebody who is like alone, but she has a fucking goated best friend and that always wants to check up on her. She's feeling like something isn't right. So she will still text her and try to get in contact with her somehow. Steve is using Noah's phone to send pictures of like the waterfalls of where they're going and where they're supposed to be at. And say, yeah, we're gonna put our phones away. We're trying to like, signal's not good out here, and we're just trying to enjoy the environment and so on and so forth. She's not buying any of it at all, and she even reverse photo searches one of the photos and finds out it is a stock photo. And then this is where she goes on this full-on investigation thing, trying to track down where they are. Like she used to date the bartender at the bar that they went to, so she goes to them for like information. She goes full detective mode and tries to find everything. Finds out his name, finds like his wife's Facebook, finds a picture of him. Oh yeah, I just gave that away. He actually has a fucking family. He has a wife. And he's doing all this shit on the side. Like, I'm jumping all over the place, but yeah, this is Molly's like the whole detective arc. This is like the separate thing that's going on. Molly goes through this whole thing, finds out he has a wife, goes to the house, and tries to say like, I know about your husband. Your husband was dating my friend, and this is what was going on. He's like, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. And his name is something completely different. It's like, no, yeah, I have no idea. I'm not dating anybody, married stuff. And then plot twist, the wife is in on it too. Knocks out Molly. Molly gets taken as well. But this is all like later in the film. Like I said, I'm kind of jumping around, but that is fucking insane, man. This family is in on it. And going back to when Noah first wakes up there and then is finally left alone, screaming for help, and she meets somebody next door, another person that's trapped as well, and her name is Penny. And she says, I have no idea how long I've been here. Like I'm lost on it, but I'm in the same boat. So she finds out she's not the only one. And then we clearly see he only does this to women. And he does explain like supposedly women taste better, which I'm not exactly sure why that is, but that's what he does. He takes pieces of women, freeze dries them, and puts them in these delivery boxes with like photos of the women and then like an article of their clothing, like full on like stalker package. Like it is so fucking weird. This guy has the weirdest fucking Amazon wish list I've ever seen, but supposedly his deliveries get there on time and very well conditioned. So he's doing his job, and I'll give him that. I do love like the cooking scene in this movie, because you just see him just like singing, dancing, like just having such a great time, and you just see like body parts, and he's just like cooking it, like slicing it, doing all this, doing the vacuum seals. Like it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like if this was in a regular movie of him actually cooking regular shit, this would be like, you know what? Fuck yeah, I do that, which I do that. I wear shit like this. If you guys aren't seeing it, it is a Mexican bingo apron. I forgot to mention that earlier, with a Turnstile shirt, glow on. Shout out to them. That is awesome. My girlfriend got me onto this band and bought me this shirt, so I love it. I wanted to wear it. But yeah, I do that same thing. I blast music. I get me a little drinky drink. I do that and cook at the same time. I enjoy it. I love when I actually have like a meal I haven't cooked in a minute, and it actually requires vegetables and all this other stuff. I feel like Gordon Ramsay, yo. Like, that's what I feel like. Would he enjoy my food? Probably fuck not. But I cook well for me, for a simple tin. That's me. And as expensive as these fucking prices are getting for fucking food, bro, my shit feels like and costs like a fucking 5-star meal. So anybody who says different about my food, go fuck yourself. You don't know anything. You don't know what I go through. You don't know what I do in that fucking kitchen. All right, but now back to Penny. So Penny is the next door cellmate, neighbor, captive, whatever, the one right next to Noah, and tells her, yeah, like nobody's looking for me. I don't really have anybody. I have no like family, friends like that. So I've just been here. And then she has somebody next to her who is named Melissa. And supposedly she's been there the longest and she like lost her mind. She's just out of it. And that's when it all starts to set in for her like, oh shit, I am fucked. Like it really starts to weigh in on her. Like the existential crisis just shows on her face of what she's about to go through. And this is where one of the most diabolical shit I think I've ever seen in a movie. Like I said, that affects your mind. And just because I haven't seen that, you know, I've obviously seen some other shit, but this one, it's like, wow. And he tries to be nice to her and it's just not really working. She just tells him, I need a shower, because obviously you want to keep everything clean. So he's like, all right. But she does try to escape. He ends up knocking her out. You broke my trust. So now I'm going to take something from you. And I never would have guessed this is what was going to happen. He literally takes her ass. He cuts off her ass to ship to people to go eat. Dude, what the fuck? Like, he like drugs her, cuts her ass, takes care of her, wraps her up, has her like on the medicine and stuff. That is fucking diabolical. But somehow she's still able to walk and like eventually later in the movie, like run, sit down. How the fuck, like, how long would it take for you to recover from having your ass like cut off? Like, I don't know. I would imagine all the muscles and stuff is gone. Like, that's what you need. So what is there? If anybody has any bit of medical background that watches me, like, for the love of God, please try to give like detail what would happen if somebody did lose their ass and how would they sit, run, or just do any activity, because all of this takes place over the course of I think just a couple days. So she didn't have months to recover. So I'm curious. I gotta know. Now, after that surgery, she's still recovering. You know, she's laying on her stomach, obviously, and she's still talking to Penny. You know, they do talk back and forth, and Noah talks about how she wishes she didn't sleep with him, and then Penny drops the bomb. Nobody slept with him. Like, that's different. Nobody's done that, you know. So she starts to think, wait, he might have actually really liked me. And then her, like, you know, the gears start turning. Maybe she could use this to her advantage. She is different. But she starts getting a bit of special treatment. He gives her magazines and, you know, he's definitely paying more attention to her. Like, he'll chill in there with her. You know, he'll sit across. You know, he wants to stay away, not try to get in a fight with her. And so she'll ask him, like, you know, like, why did you sleep with me? And he just says, oh, you know, I did like you. Like, I really did enjoy like our time. So there's definitely like something there. And speaking of those magazines, so while she's going through them, she notices somebody wrote in them, and this is a previous victim, and definitely not the first person he's had this inappropriate relationship with. So it says like in like the creasing of like the magazines, if you're reading this and if you have these books, that means he likes you. You know, keep fighting, you know. So it's like encouraging stuff. So obviously this isn't the first time he's made this mistake before. Now I'm imagining you guys probably understand where this is probably going after what I mentioned earlier, that he does have a wife. It is revealed that yes, she was a previous victim. And I firmly believe she was the one that wrote in those books. Could be wrong, could be somebody else. I can't remember if it was confirmed in the movie or not. But one day while they're talking, and once again jumping around a little bit, while she's like about to get in the shower, she's looking at her body and stuff. She's like just staring at herself, kind of like judging her appearance. Like as soon as he comes in, she just tries to act as normal as possible. And you could tell like they're kind of like not really there. She feels like, or at least from what we can see, and by the time you see the reveal, you realize, oh yeah, she's kind of just stuck in this like relationship. So she's just there. She's probably checked out or whatever the hell. But whenever she gets ready for a shower, that's when we see from the knee down, she's missing her right leg. So she is a previous victim of, I'm assuming his, yeah, and has like a little bit of this Stockholm syndrome, or maybe it's more so a survival tactic because she used his feelings for her to get out of that situation. But now where can she go? She can't be free. You know, she knows like too much. So what does she do? She has to be like the wife and mother to his kids. That's fucking insane. Like, that is another really dark moment of this that you don't really think about too much while you're watching. You're just like, oh shit, like what a twist. No, think about the world as if it was real. That is fucking wild, dude, that she has to be there for that. You know, she has no out, because this organization, from what we see throughout the movie, like these small little moments, this is a big organization. There's a lot of money in this organization. She can't just get away from that. I want to assume maybe he didn't feed on her. That's even more fucked up if he actually got to eat her. But that did this to her. That is, dude, that is fucking wild. That is a whole other level of toxic and abusive relationship. But after getting some motivation from those magazines, Noah decides, you know what, I'm gonna try to play it up, try to earn his trust again, and maybe I could try to use that to get out of here. And so she starts telling him, oh, I'm kind of curious as to what it tastes like, you know, the food. And that's when he's like, like, all right, you know, I'll cook for you one day. And he fixes her a meal and tells her this meal is worth 30 grand. Like the plate you're about to eat right now. And it's only the single serving thing. I can't remember what it was exactly. And she asks, like, yo, like, this isn't me, right? Like, I'm not trying to eat myself. He's like, no, I promise it's not you, which honestly, that'd be even more fucked up if he made you eat yourself. And while researching for this, because, you know, cannibalism has always been that one thing that's been very interesting because it is always depicted in like movies and other forms of media. I mean, one, we're not exactly meant for it. Humans can physically do it, but we are not meant to actually do it. That's why you get sick if you actually eat brain matter. The brain, our brain, knows that it is not supposed to be eaten by another person. It is dangerous. It will protect itself so that way it won't do that. And I feel like, and I'm completely theorizing this, I feel like that is an evolutionary like trait that we adopted over time, because there were at one point 8 other species of humanoids roaming this earth along with like the earliest humans. So those species died out either through cannibalism or other species were meddling together, mixing together, and then just one group just slowly started to fade out like more and more. And I do feel like that is something that's going to happen over the time with races. You can meet every other person nowadays and they're a mutt, and I say that because, you know, I'm a fucking mutt. Like, especially in America, it is such a petri dish. And even though like racism is still like something that's prevalent, but the newer generations are not on board with that shit, and they're just going to love who they want to love. Everything is just going to mix together, and it's just like at one point there might not even be full of, you know, this or that, just especially here in America. That is going to be a very prominent thing. But going back to the brain matter, how like we can't eat another person's brain matter because it will make us sick. I feel like that is just protection, so that way we don't die off like those other species did, because those other species did partake in cannibalism. That is part why other species died off, and so on and so forth. And I feel like that is also why we have the uncanny valley effect, because at one point humans are at the top of the food chain, okay? Obviously. But at one point we weren't. There were other things that would eat humans, other humanoids that would eat us, which were, I think Neanderthals are probably the most infamous ones that would partake in cannibalism. They would actively like hunt other species and humans alike for like a long time and actually fed on them. So yeah, we had reason to be scared of like people who looked like humans who weren't humans. And you got to think, this is way back when. There's nothing telling you, oh, hey, yeah, avoid that person or avoid people who look like this. There was nothing to tell you that. You had to go full off of instinct of, I'm looking at that figure over there and I feel in danger. I feel like something isn't right. Like, I'm not okay right now. That's exactly what they had to go through, and they could only live off of that instinct itself. So I feel like that's exactly where we get it. And thing is, and while doing the research about the uncanny valley effect, that term was actually coined by a roboticist, which is pretty much mainly used to describe how we could probably see robots and like AI in the future. That's like the uncanny valley, but I feel like it expands more than that with what I'm about to say. The uncanny valley is just more of a feeling we have whenever we assign human-like qualities to something. We are not 100% sure that thing is a human or that it will behave like a human and maybe not attack us. It won't be a danger to us. You know, obviously we could see another person and think, oh yeah, that person could possibly be dangerous. You know, that's just kind of like something different. But this is completely different, where it's like, I don't know what that is, but it looks human. But is it going to be okay with me? Like, are we going to be, are we going to be chill? That's what that is. And I feel like that's why we get that little type of scare thing. And I feel like that's why we use that in horror as well. While we have these reactions to things having like longer mouths or like wider eyes or far apart eyes, you have these things that make you uneasy because like, whoa, you're giving off some crazy vibes right now, like something's not right. Like that's what that is. So I feel like this plays into that and that whole cannibalism thing. That's just my whole thought process on it. Like I don't know, I just wanted to go into that. I feel intelligent when I just said all that. Now after the date, Noah's back in her room and she tries to throw up the food. Obviously she's not into it, so she's just trying to earn the trust and go on from there. Steve goes to another room. I'm assuming this was a room that Melissa was in, 'cause I think Melissa is fully gone by this point. I can't remember 100%, but I think she's fully dead by this point. So there are only like 3 rooms, and we see Molly. He has Molly like up over his shoulder just walking. Molly is now there and Noah has no fucking idea. But now we fast forward a little bit and Steve is definitely starting to be more interested in Noah. So they're going to have like another date, another candlelit date, and he gave her a dress that she could wear, which I think is kind of funny because of like way earlier in the film, the whole, oh, you would look better in a dress type of comment that was made. So now they're getting all dolled up. They're going to have this dinner. They actually eat some of Melissa, which is fucking insane. You know, because like you knew that person was over there. Like, I don't see how she could do it. I don't think I could, especially when you knew that person was just 2 rooms away from you. He shows her, like, I guess like most of his victims, or at least like some maybe recent ones, because behind this massive painting, there's like this like intersection that has all these shelves and it has pictures of women and articles of their clothing and like other items that belong to them, stuff he kept that he could put in the boxes. You know, he does a little gift box, you know, that's what he does. And you see like all these women and it's just like, wow, like he's really at this, man. It's fucking weird. And while they're talking about all that stuff, she's still looking at everything. And then she notices like some phone cases and recognizes one of them because of the face that was kind of like painted on it, the cover there. And just going back to the uncanny valley thing where we notice faces, she notices this face out of all these cases because this was the case of Molly's phone. So right then and there, she knows he has Molly as well. And as she keeps it together like a little bit, like trying, but like breaking, like, oh my God. Like she knows like just how more fucked up this situation got. And while they're eating, they're making jokes, you know, she's trying to like really earn his trust. And she kind of like breaks a little bit and says how she feels bad that she doesn't feel bad for eating another person. I feel like this is what really gets his trust because he's trying to be very sympathetic and try to tell her like, you know, how like okay it is, you know, it's just you're learning and, you know, all this other stuff. He's really trying to like indoctrinate her into this. And he's definitely taking a liking to her because his wife did try to get a hold of him before this date happened while he was getting ready. He just puts his phone away like in a box and just gets ready, puts on a suit, goes about his night. I feel like that's what has the wife worked up because she definitely is kind of thrown off by like his scheduling, like his pattern. And I feel like she might see the similarities of how he was when he started to, I guess, take an interest in her. So I feel like she thinks she's about to get replaced. And if that is true, once again, you can't just leave. So where is she supposed to go? So she has to protect her place in the house. But after the dinner, you know, they make their way to the room. So they're obviously about to get it on and he's all prepared. She goes to the bathroom to excuse herself a little bit, I guess, get prepped. She's about to perform fellatio. Boy, man, that is scary. Cause you just see a shot of her just going just like mouth open, charging in between like his thighs. And he just like screams. And then you just get a shot of her and she just has blood all right here. 100% she bit that dude's dick off. She's eventually able to find Molly and then they're able to get Penny. And then you see that Penny that she has like no eyes and she's missing a leg. So they're trying to like get her out of there. But he eventually catches up to them. And then now they're all just like fighting in the kitchen and he gets fucked up even more. They run outside. He ends up having a gun. Then they get the best of him and he gets shot in the head. You know, that's it. That's how he dies, you know. But it was like a funny moment right before like she's about to shoot him. She tells him to like smile because he said it earlier whenever he finally showed his true self and she was all like petrified and stuff. He's like, oh, you know, you should smile more. They kind of just like get over it. Like, hey, you know, it's not a big deal. Like it's already happening. Like you just let's get past all this like bad vibes and smile. So she tells him to smile and he already knows he's fucking dead. So he just smiles, you know, covered in blood and like fucked up eye, and then just gets shot right in the face by Noah. So very much needed. While they're still trying to find like an exit and stuff, his body is found by the wife because she's been trying to get a hold of him, can't get a hold of him. So she stumbles across it and she doesn't look too bothered by that at all. I think it's more of like a relief. And Noah ends up leaving Penny and Molly so that way she could find a phone that she dropped, but she comes across like his wife and she's trying to play it up like, oh, she's a victim that she got out. But the thing is, it's kind of hard to play a victim when you're dressed kind of bougie, you know, like you don't look like them where they got like hospital gowns, missing limbs and shit. I mean, she is missing a limb, but you wouldn't have known that. You know, she has her hair done and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna fucking think you're a fucking victim. Like, no, you're part of this shit. I think her death is probably my favorite. So she gets like stabbed with some keys by Noah while they're fighting, and then Molly comes up and just starts beating the shit out of her with a shovel in a very good practical effect. You just see like her head just like getting smashed in because she's just going ham on that. And so they both like rest by a tree after the fight, and Noah's like, I don't even know who that is, like what the fuck. And Molly explains to her, you know, filling her in, oh yeah, that's his wife. And it's just a funny moment because Noah's like, he's married. Like it goes back to like their friendship just did not miss a beat, and it just goes over like, oh yeah, they're just spilling the tea and that's it. And in typical fashion, while they're both there just like kind of recovering since it's all over, Noah looks at her phone and sees a message that just pops up. And I think this is around like midnight where this whole thing is going on. And you see a message from the guy in the beginning, which his name was Chad. Oh, fucking course it is. And all it says is, you up? Bro, come on, man. Like, God, that's just funny. I think this movie is very well done. It has some really good humor, good practical effects, scary world if you really think about it, like I tried to explain earlier. This movie's good, man. And one thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is still like, how was she able to do all of this with no ass? Like, how was she sitting by a tree? Like, I don't get it. That's what I want to know. But I'm never going to get answers to these questions. But if you guys are out there in the dating world, I wish you guys the best. Be safe. Be careful, talk to your friends, let them know who you're talking to when you're doing these things, share locations, protect yourselves. You never know who you are dating. And as many scary stories I've seen where even like friends like have their other friends murdered or like trafficked off and stuff, it is scary nowadays. So you have no idea. Like I said in the beginning, you only have yourself in this world. If you really think about it, anything can happen. Just be content with yourself, be smart, and just look out for yourself, okay? Put yourself first. It is okay to be selfish, okay? To an extent, but it is okay. But before we go, I got to give you guys a fortune cookie, and then we're going to be out of here. I don't know what the next episode's going to be. It's going to be something, and I think we actually might have a guest on the next one that I can actually talk to. Maybe. All right, and I got one for you. Trust yourself enough to say no when something's not right, and yes when it most definitely is. Do with that what you will, ladies and gentlemen. But until next time, be excellent, be kind, subscribe to the podcast.